Peru for his statement, and I give the floor now to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We want to thank Madam Rina Gilani for her presentation. We note with satisfaction the stable trend in the decrease of violence in Syria. However, in spite of the continuing stabilization in the Syrian Arab Republic, there's still flashpoints of tension, including in the Idlib province and to the east of the Euphrates River. The situation in the northwest of Syria is unstable and cannot be artificially contained for a long time. The threat coming from the fighters from the al-Nusra alliance Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, who have practically completely taken the territory under their control, cannot disappear by itself. Appeals to freeze the situation simply encourage the terrorists. In this connection, together with their Turkish and Iranian partners, we have continued efforts to develop a formula which would make it possible to combat the terrorist threat without harming the civilian population. Now, the summit in Sochi on the 14th of February confirmed that the Astana Troika is the only one that is seeking to find the fastest ways to stabilize the situation in Syria on the ground, in Idlib and in the northeast. We support the idea of the need to increase humanitarian assistance to Syria. The Syrians truly do need a great deal. The assistance being provided to the country is essential. However, it must be comprehensive and it must be depoliticized. We know that there's been pressure put on some countries to dissuade them from helping the population living in territories controlled by Damascus. This is absolutely unacceptable. Just equally shameful is the use of unilateral sanctions, which first and foremost affect the situation of ordinary Syrians. Instead of bringing suffering to the citizens of Syria, thinking that they're hurting the authorities in Damascus, what's important is to focus on the most effective way of improving the humanitarian situation in Syria. And this is by helping to rebuild the civilian infrastructure and the national economy that have been destroyed. We want to underscore that without inviting the representatives of the Syrian government to the upcoming Brussels conference, it will not be meaningful. There's a stable increase in the number of refugees returning to Syria from neighboring states. I want to underscore that no one is forcing refugees to return. According to estimates, slightly less than 2 million Syrians have expressed the wish to return to their country from 10 countries around the world. Overall, from the 30th of September of 2015, from foreign countries, some 370,000 people have returned. With the help of the Russian Center for Reconciliation of Opposing Sides, 12 checkpoints have been set up, including one at an airport and one maritime checkpoint. The authorities of Syria are taking steps aimed at making the process of the return of Syrian refugees sustainable. In 412 towns that have suffered the least from military activity, offices have been set up to welcome and house refugees with a capacity of 1.5 million people. In the provinces of Aleppo, Damascus, and Hama, a state program is being implemented to rebuild towns on territories liberated from fighters. The program includes preparing infrastructure, water supply, electrification, targeted assistance to the population, and the return of people to their permanent homes. The process of providing amnesty to individuals who've avoided fulfilling their military service has continued, including among refugees and members of illegal armed groups. Currently, over 55,000 people have been amnestied. We expect that those who truly care about the fate of the ordinary Syrians should examine the situation in Syria more carefully, taking into account realities on the ground, and would join efforts to overcome and restore the destruction of the country and normalize people's lives. Mr. President, we want to draw particular attention to two aspects. First of all, we want to express our concern about the situation in the IDP camp Al-Haul, which is located in the northeast of the Haseka province. There are almost 50,000 refugees there, mostly women and children. All of them fled Hajin, which the coalition headed by the United States, together with their proteges on the ground, have basically razed to the ground, and by the way, with a great deal of victims among the civilians. At the time, no one made appeals to stop the airstrikes and shelling, as far as we recall. Now, this camp is receiving people from Al-Baghouz now, which is also being laid waste. People will tell you that all these airstrikes are high precision ones, but we've heard the same thing about Raqqa, where bodies are still being extracted from the debris. I think it's time, including for everyone, including UN structures, to set aside double standards and to look at the situation objectively. The problem of Rugban, and from the 6th to the 14th of February, an operation was carried out to deliver humanitarian assistance to Rugban, by the UN and the Syrian Red Crescent. The situation is not related to an absence among the IDPs of the wish to return to territory under the control of Damascus. Quite to the contrary, the survey conducted in the camp by the UN showed that 95% want to leave Rugban, and 80% indeed want to return to areas under the control of the Syrian authorities. The problem of Rugban is in the illegal occupation by the United States of part of Syrian territory in the Al-Tan region, where fighters from the Magavir al-Sar group are deployed, who have stained their reputation with their ties to the terrorists. Access to this area and leaving that zone is basically closed due to overpopulation, anti-sanitary conditions, and a lack of food and medicaments. Tens of thousands have already died. According to some reports, the first case of leprosy was reported in that camp. The United States, as the occupying power in accordance with the Geneva Convention, bears full responsibility for the situation of inhabitants of Rugban. Article 55 of the Fourth Convention states, to the fullest extent of the means available to it, the occupying power has the duty of ensuring the food and medical supplies of the population. Bring in the necessary foodstuffs, medical stores, and other articles if the resources of the occupied territory are inadequate. In accordance with Article 56, the occupying power, to the extent and means available to it, the occupying power has the duty of ensuring and maintaining, with the cooperation of national and local authorities, the medical and hospital establishments and services, public health and hygiene of the occupied territory. End of quote. The convention stresses that external humanitarian assistance does not relieve the occupying power of its responsibility. So it turns out that the international humanitarian community, the UN, specialized agencies, donors, and partners are doing what the United States is supposed to be doing in accordance with international law. We are suggesting a solution to the current situation and a lasting solution to the problem of Rugban. This is the evacuation of all those in the camp who express the wish to go wherever they want. All those who express that wish, of course, is the key word here. We must urgently start implementing this idea rather than waste time in planning new convoys which only underscore disregard for international law in this part of Syria. That is what the Russian initiative is aimed at, in accordance with which, starting on the 19th of February, 2 corridors under the humanitarian guarantees of the Syrian Red Crescent have been opened to evacuate those from the camp. People are ready. You simply need to stop preventing their leaving the camp. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.